the lead up to the fight, Tyson's return, and the clash with Lewis. The boxing world in 2002 was buzzing with anticipation. Mike Tyson, the former heavyweight champion who had once been considered unbeatable, was attempting a comeback after a series of personal struggles, controversial moments, and a decline in form. Tyson had been out of the heavyweight spotlight for some time, and many wondered if he could ever regain the dominance that had once made him the youngest heavyweight champion in history. Lennox Lewis, on the other hand, was at the peak of his career. The British-Canadian boxer was the reigning heavyweight champion, having unified the titles after defeating a series of top contenders. Lewis was a methodical and disciplined fighter, known for his size, skill, and ability to execute a game plan. He was a sharp contrast to Tyson, whose reputation was built on raw power, aggression, and unpredictability. The hype surrounding the fight was immense. The question on everyone's mind was whether Tyson, despite his erratic behavior, could still pull off a shocking victory against the well-prepared and calculated Lewis. For Lewis, the fight was an opportunity to solidify his place as the dominant heavyweight of the era. The media attention was unparalleled, but the tensions leading up to the fight would soon reach a boiling point. The pre-fight press conference, Tyson's unhinged behavior. One of the most infamous moments of the Tyson-Lewis build-up came during the pre-fight press conference. As the two fighters faced off for the first time in the public eye, the atmosphere quickly escalated from tense to chaotic. Tyson, known for his unpredictability, did not disappoint. His erratic behavior took center stage as he exchanged heated words with Lewis, but it was when Tyson launched himself at Lewis that the situation completely unraveled. Tyson, in a shocking outburst, physically attacked Lewis and bit him on the leg during the brawl. The move was seen as a deliberate act of aggression, and the media frenzy exploded as cameras captured the chaotic scene. The press conference, which was meant to hype the upcoming fight, instead became a symbol of Tyson's ongoing struggles with impulse control and erratic behavior. The attack further cemented Tyson's reputation as a volatile figure, a man whose behavior outside the ring was just as unpredictable as his fighting style. The incident overshadowed the event itself, with Tyson's actions dominating headlines around the world. Tyson's camp and management were left to deal with the fallout, attempting to downplay the incident. But it was clear that Tyson's behavior was becoming more of a spectacle than a sport. The media backlash was swift, with critics accusing Tyson of having lost his mind and no longer possessing the mental discipline necessary to compete at the highest level. For Lennox Lewis, the attack seemed to fuel his desire to face Tyson in the ring. Lewis, a man who had built his career on discipline and a methodical approach to boxing, was undeterred by the antics of his opponent. In fact, it seemed to strengthen his resolve. He would now face a Tyson who appeared not only physically dangerous, but mentally unstable. The build-up continues Tyson's crude remarks and media backlash. As the fight date approached, Tyson's behavior continued to make headlines. His interviews, which once had a mix of humor and intensity, became increasingly erratic and filled with crude comments that only fueled the negative perception of him. Tyson made headlines for making bizarre statements, including openly threatening to eat his children and destroy Lewis. These statements, while not entirely out of character for Tyson, seemed to push the boundaries of acceptable behavior for a professional athlete. Media outlets pounced on Tyson's words, questioning his mental stability and his suitability for a sport that demanded discipline and focus. Tyson's history of controversial moments, ranging from his infamous ear-biting incident with Evander Holyfield to his chaotic behavior outside the ring, only intensified the scrutiny. The public's perception of Tyson was that of a man who had gone from being a once great champion to a circus act, whose unpredictability had rendered him a sideshow spectacle rather than a legitimate contender. Meanwhile, Lennox Lewis maintained a relatively quiet and focused approach. He continued to prepare for the fight with the professionalism and discipline that had earned him the reputation of one of the best heavyweights of his era. While Tyson's antics kept the media busy, Lewis's camp was quietly confident that their fighter was ready to prove himself and put the circus atmosphere behind him. The fight begins round 1 and early dominance. When the night of the fight finally arrived on June 8, 2002, the tension in the arena was palpable. Tyson entered the ring with his usual intensity, but it was clear from the moment the bell rang that his behavior was not the only thing that was off. Tyson looked like a fighter who was mentally distracted, a far cry from the unstoppable force that had once ruled the heavyweight division. Lennox Lewis, on the other hand, looked calm, collected, and ready to execute his plan. He towered over Tyson with his significant height and reach advantage, and he was determined to use his superior boxing technique to control the fight. From the opening moments, it was clear that Lewis had the upper hand. He utilized his jab effectively, keeping Tyson at bay and controlling the pace of the fight. Tyson, who had always been dangerous in the early rounds, struggled to land any significant blows on Lewis. The precision and skill of Lewis were evident, and Tyson appeared unable to close the distance and land his trademark powerful punches. Tyson tried to rush in, looking for that one big shot, but Lewis kept him at a distance, scoring with clean jabs and moving out of range before Tyson could retaliate. Round 1 went largely in favor of Lewis, with Tyson looking frustrated and unable to impose his will. Tyson's aggression was evident, but he seemed out of sync with his usual style. His attempts to break through Lewis's defense were futile, and the crowd began to sense that this fight was not going to unfold in the way they had imagined. Round 2 to round 7, Lewis solidifies control. As the fight progressed, Tyson's struggles continued. He appeared slow and uncoordinated, unable to connect with any significant punches. His frustration mounted as Lewis continued to control the pace of the fight with his jab and footwork. The rounds were a showcase of Lewis's boxing mastery. His size, reach, and ability to maintain control of the fight were evident in every exchange. Tyson, while still dangerous, could not get past Lewis's defense. His attacks were predictable, and Lewis expertly avoided most of Tyson's punches while landing clean counters. By the middle rounds, Tyson's aggression seemed to be turning into desperation. He lunged at Lewis, but his movements lacked the fluidity and precision that had made him such a formidable force in his prime. In contrast, Lewis seemed to be growing in confidence with every passing round. He began to land more combinations, wearing Tyson down both physically and mentally. Tyson's face began to show signs of damage, and the once unstoppable force was now simply being outboxed by a man who was clearly his superior in every aspect of the fight. As the rounds continued, Tyson's frustration and fatigue were becoming increasingly apparent. His wild swings missed their target, and his head movement became sluggish. It was clear that the mental and physical exhaustion of dealing with Lewis's discipline and skill was taking its toll on Tyson. Round 8, the end of the fight. By round 8, Tyson was visibly tired and demoralized. His face was swollen, and his movements had slowed considerably. Lewis, on the other hand, was sharp and ready to close the show. In the opening moments of round 8, Lewis landed a devastating right hand that sent Tyson stumbling backward. Tyson was clearly hurt, but he attempted to regain his composure. However, the combination of Lewis's precise punching and Tyson's lack of defense proved to be too much. A few moments later, Lewis landed another brutal right hand that sent Tyson crashing to the canvas. Tyson struggled to get up, but he was clearly out of it. The referee counted but Tyson's body language suggested that he had nothing left. At the count of 10, Tyson remained on the canvas, and the fight was officially over. Lennox Lewis had defeated Mike Tyson by knockout in round 8, solidifying his place as the dominant heavyweight champion of the era. The crowd erupted in applause for Lewis, who had controlled the fight from start to finish. Tyson, on the other hand, was left on the canvas, battered and defeated. It was a decisive victory for Lewis, who had proven that his skill and discipline were far too much for Tyson's erratic aggression. Aftermath: Tyson's reputation and Lewis's legacy. The aftermath of the Tyson-Lewis fight left many wondering about Tyson's future in boxing. His reputation had taken another significant hit, not just from his loss in the ring, but from his erratic behavior leading up to the fight. Tyson's post-fight interviews were filled with bitterness and anger, further fueling the perception that he was a man who could no longer control his emotions and impulses. For Lennox Lewis, the victory solidified his place in boxing history. He had beaten a once great champion in a dominant fashion, proving that he was the best heavyweight of his era. Lewis's win was not just a victory over Tyson, but a triumph of skill, discipline, and mental fortitude over raw power and erratic aggression. The fight also marked the end of Tyson's era as a feared contender. His dominance in the ring had been replaced by self-sabotage and a lack of focus. Despite occasional flashes of brilliance, Tyson's career was now a shadow of what it had once been. Lewis, meanwhile, continued to reign as the undisputed heavyweight champion, though the Tyson fight was arguably his greatest achievement. The legacy of the Tyson-Lewis fight would live on as one of the most significant moments in boxing history, not only for its outcome, but for the drama, controversy, and personalities that surrounded it. Tyson's erratic behavior, coupled with his devastating loss, served as a cautionary tale about the importance of mental discipline in a sport as demanding as boxing. For Lewis, it was a crowning achievement that confirmed his place as one of the greatest heavyweights to ever step into the ring.